The deaths of the disciples when faith met the sword. The apostles who died for a kingdom that never came. They followed a man who promised them power over serpents, authority over sickness, and eternal reward beyond death. But when the end came, it wasn't divine, it was brutal, merciless, and painfully human. The so-called anointed 12 didn't ascend in glory. They were hunted, tortured, and silenced. Each meeting an ending that contradicted the gospel they preached. Let's unmask the stories the pulpits often soften. Peter, crucified upside down. The rock on which the church was built ended broken, inverted, hanging upside down on a cross. He requested to face the earth, not heaven. The same empire that ended his master's life ended his too. If faith conquers all, why couldn't he conquer Rome's nails? Andrew, bound to an X-shaped cross. Peter's brother, the fisherman turned preacher. He was fastened, not nailed, to a cross shaped like an X. They said he continued to preach even as his voice faded. 2 days of agony and silence followed. If Christ promised abundant life, why did Andrew fade away begging for breath? James the Greater, taken by the sword. The first apostle to face death for his faith, brought before Herod Agrippa, the same royal line that mocked Jesus. No angel appeared, no miracle escaped. Just a final swing of Roman justice. Was this the reward of being in Christ's inner circle? John, the only one who survived.
Barely.
They tried to destroy him. Legend says he was cast into boiling oil. He survived, scarred and shaken, then exiled to Patmos, a lonely island of rocks and silence. He wrote visions of beasts, plagues and fire, a mind haunted by everything he'd seen. If his God spared him, why was he left alone, blind and trembling in exile? Philip, fastened and left to die. Until they tied him to a pillar and left him suspended. Some say he was hung by iron hooks through his ankles. The crowd watched without mercy. His message didn't save him, only silenced him. So what happened to these signs shall follow them that believe. Bartholomew, tortured and beheaded. The gentle one who once asked, can anything good come from Nazareth? He faced one of the harshest ends in the apostolic record. His body was torn apart, his head taken last. The same mouth that spoke of paradise was filled with pain. If heaven awaited, why did he walk through so much suffering first? Thomas, pierced by spears. The doubter, the one who needed proof, he brought the gospel to India, where locals thrust spears through his body. The man who once touched Christ's wounds was pierced with his own. No divine shield, no miracle, just silence in the sand. Matthew, struck down while preaching.
Ethiopia.
The tax collector turned saint. He was attacked during a service. His blood fell where his message stood. He preached about treasures in heaven, but left the world without a coin's worth of mercy. His blessing brought more pain than prosperity. James the Lesser, beaten and stoned. from the temple roof, the very house of God. When the fall didn't end him, religious men struck him with clubs. The temple that once rejected Christ finished off his disciple. The house of prayer became the scene of condemnation. Thaddeus, Judas Iscariot, self-destruction. The betrayer, the one everyone condemns, but think, without Judas, there would be no crucifixion, no resurrection story, no gospel at all. He fulfilled prophecy, then was cursed for it. He ended his own life, crushed under the weight of divine irony. If prophecy used him, why was he punished for obeying it? Matthias, the replacement apostle, stoned and beheaded, chosen by casting lots, his destiny decided by chance. He faced stoning and beheading, proving divine selection offers no divine protection. The irony of the faithful. They said, he will never leave you nor forsake you. Yet every one of them faced isolation, torture, or exile. They said, you shall tread upon serpents and scorpions. But the only thing they trod upon was their own blood. They said, you will sit on 12 thrones judging Israel. But none of them saw a throne, only instruments of their suffering. Was this divine reward or divine silence? Was this holy triumph or the empire's mockery? The so-called heroes of faith face endings like
John the Baptist, loud, proud, while in the desert, condemned kings, judged hearts, but never questioned his own anger. He mocked sinners, but died in sinless silence. Head rolling, the prophet became entertainment. Peter, the rock that cracked, denied his master 3 times, cursed, swore, then wept in guilt. Later he preached boldness, but fear was still his shadow. And when death came, he begged to die upside down, a broken symbol of broken faith. Paul, the persecutor turned preacher, once hunted believers, then rewrote their story as his own. His letters built empires, but his ego built walls. He preached grace, yet called himself the chief of sinners. He demanded obedience, the same obedience he once enforced with violence. And in the end, his head rolled under Roman law. He never conquered. Oh, they died for a promise that never came, bled for a kingdom that never arrived. They called it faith, but maybe it was guilt. They called it glory, but maybe it was fear. Thomas the doubter, the man who said, unless I touch the wound, I won't believe. Faith built on evidence, then stabbed to death in foreign lands. He found no heaven, warned me sleep. Andrew, who followed in Peter's shadow, wanted fame in faith, got pain in James the Greater, prideful, ambitious, asked for thrones beside Jesus and found only the sword. James the Lesser, thrown from the temple, bones shattered, the walls he worshipped became his coffin. Bartholomew, preacher of purity, but prideful and arrogant. His skin peeled off, the holy strip bare to his true flesh. Philip, crucify his tongue, swollen from thirst. Matthew, rich tax collector turned sin. Once a thief, later stabbed as one, no redemption, just repetition. They were men, not angels. They lusted, they feared, they doubted, they sinned. And yet the system turned them into gods. Pain became proof and blood became gospel. But can a gospel born in guilt ever set anyone free? Pain the doorway to peace. They call defeat deliverance. And silence salvation, they turn tragedy to theology and madness to ministry. Mark, once abandoned, call mid-journey, later dragged through streets still torn apart. Luke, physician turned prophet, healed the ghost, couldn't heal himself, hang from an olive tree. Matthias burned alive for replacing another traitor. Barnabas, the encourager, stoned in cold silence. Polycarp praised his tormentors while burning. Justin Martyr wrote essays on faith, yet begged for mercy when the sword rose. Ignatius fed to lions, his faith devoured with him. And Peter's wife crucified before his eyes while he shouted, "Remember the Lord." But who remembered her? They sold us a gospel of suffering. They made agony sacred. They taught Africa is a scroll to glorify pain as purpose, to die instead of think, to kneel instead of rise. They called it martyrdom, but maybe it wasn't mutilation. They called it sentence.
They call them saints. But if holiness wears human skin, and human skin always rots, then what truly makes a saint? Is it grace or guilt, faith or fear, blood or branding? They say God chose them, but maybe guilt made them gods. Saint John the Baptist, desert madman, angry prophet who baptized others but never washed his own wrath. His sermons were soaked in rage, his righteousness was just revenge dressed in camel hair. He cursed kings, mocked whores, and called it zeal. His head became a dinner gift, his silence a sermon he never meant to preach. They call him holy, but maybe he was just another angry man who mistook noise for truth. Saint Peter, loudmouth fisherman turned coward disciple. He swore loyalty, then lied 3 times in one night, denying the very man he swore to die for. His fear was greater than his faith, his guilt heavier than his gross. Later he claimed courage, but fear followed him into every prayer. He built the church on his weakness and called it foundation. They call him saint, but can cowardice build a kingdom of truth? Saint Paul, the blood-stained intellectual, murderer of believers turned manipulator of doctrine. His gospel was guilt, his weapon was words. He built get theology from trauma and enslaved half the world with his letters. He preached humility, yet ruled his followers like a tyrant of grace. His sin was pride in disguise. He wanted to replace Rome's empire with his own empire of faith. And when the blade fell, the blood of his victims cried louder than his epistles. They call him saint, but who forgave the man who built salvation on corpses? Saint Thomas, the doubter who wanted proof, not faith. He demanded to touch wounds, but never healed any. His sin was disbelief, yet disbelief made him honest, more real than the others. He found death in foreign soil, stabbed for preaching a God he once questioned. They call him saint, but what if doubt was the only honest faith he ever had? Saint Matthew, tax collector turned apostle, who traded coins for crowns. His sin was greed, first for money, later for influence. He followed Jesus, but still counted tatters with his heart. He wrote about heaven while the poor starved around him, stabbed by the same greed he once served. They call him saint, but can a man who sold souls for silver ever buy his way to heaven? Saint Bartholomew, arrogant missionary, boasting of purity while bathing in pride. He measured holiness by status and looked down on the broken he preached to. His flesh was peeled from his body. Irony made art of arrogance. They call him saint, but maybe his pain was just punishment wearing divine disguise. Saint James the Greater, ambitious, loud, power hungry. He wanted thrones beside Christ, wanted to rule, not serve. His sin was lust for greatness. His prayers were political. When the sword met his neck, he learned there are no crowns for kings in a dying kingdom. They call him saint. But was he just a politician in holy robes? Saint Bartholomew, chosen to replace a traitor, but carried the same disease and ambition. He didn't earn the role, he wanted the title. His sin was vanity and virtue, burned alive for a cause he barely understood. They call him saint. But was his kindness ever real, or just jealousy in disguise? Saint Polycarp, the stubborn old bishop, too proud to bend, too bitter to think. His sin was arrogance disguised as loyalty. He refused to recon.
They told us it was the good news, but everything about it bleeds backward. In this gospel, the guilty wear crowns, the loyal hang from trees, and truth dies first so faith can survive. They call it salvation, but it feels more like submission. They call it love, but it smells like control. They call it grace, but it's just guilt wearing perfume. The cross became a logo, the blood became a brand, and heaven turned into an empire of fear. Judas Iscariot, the damned fulfiller, he played his role too well, a man chosen by prophecy, handpicked by the Messiah himself to unlock salvation through betrayal. He did what was written, what destiny demanded, and for that they made him the villain. He returned the silver, confessed his sin, but mercy never came for him. They said Jesus forgave everyone except the one who made forgiveness possible. Think of it. Judas obeyed the script of divinity, fulfilled what heaven required, and still became the scapegoat of eternity. How divine is a design that condemns the very cog that made it move. He kissed truth to reveal it, and that kiss became eternal shame. Without Judas, there is no cross. Without betrayal, no salvation. Without his sin, there is no Savior. So why does heaven hate its own instrument? In this gospel, obedience is punished, and disobedience is rebranded as faith. Peter, the rock that cracked, he swore loyalty before witnesses, then lied before strangers, 3 denials before dawn. each a nail driven into his own faith. Yet from this same coward the church was born. The liar became the leader, the betrayer became the foundation of belief. His fear became the cornerstone, his weakness became worship. They say grace transformed him, but maybe the system needed a trembling man to lead a trembling people. Peter's story is not about faith, it's about fear institutionalized. A man broken by guilt used to build a religion of guilt. Cowardice turned to creed, and the trembling became tradition. He denied the truth to survive the night, and that denial became doctrine. Paul, the hijacker of heaven, once saw the slaughterer, dragging believers through streets in chains, breathing threats like holy smoke. Then one blinding light, and suddenly the murderer became the messenger. But what message? Not rebellion, not love, obedience. He wrote letters sharper than swords, teaching slaves to obey masters, women to submit, and kings to rule with divine right. His gospel didn't free men, it tamed. He replaced revolution with religion. He crucified the rebel Christ and resurrected a Roman one. Obedient, docile, licensed by empire. He preached humility while controlling minds. He turned freedom into theology and servitude into sanctification. Saul died Paul, but Rome lived forever through his pen. In the end, the persecutor didn't die. He simply changed uniforms. He stopped killing bodies and began enslaving souls. Thomas, the doubter damned by history, he asked for proof and they mocked him. He refused blind faith and they cursed him. Yet today they say test the spirits. The same faith that shames doubt was built on the man who doubted first. Thomas was not faithless, he was honest. He demanded evidence, not emotion. But truth is dangerous in a religion of obedience. Thomas sought clarity and found condemnation. Peter lied and found sainthood. Judas fulfilled prophecy and found a robe. Tell me, what kind of God grades men by hypocrisy? The gospel hates thinkers because thought is rebellion. It glorifies followers because blindness is loyalty. Thomas doubted once, and they named him forever. But the church doubts truth daily and calls it faith. Mary Magdalene, if a